Hello, MLB Data Warehouse. Not by myself today. Not sure if you just heard the classic MLB Data Warehouse podcast intro music because I'm doing this differently, but you probably did. I probably got it in there. But anyway, there's a video version of this and an audio, and I've got Tim Kanak, Tim Kanak, as I thought he was called for many years, but it's Kanak. He's here to talk about prospects, of course. Tim, thanks for being on here. How are you?
Of course. I am great. Fantastic, actually, because the weather is good today. I've been working outside. I mentioned to you before we started recording. I got a little bitty mini workout in,
Yes.
huffing and puffing roofing rolls up and down a roof. So, I'm feeling good. The good thing about having a job like mine is that I get to be outside and inside. I'm not just like put in a corner, put in a
Yeah.
hole all day.
And you live somewhere where you can go outside more than half the
Yes.
year. Yeah.
All year, all 2 seasons, baby. Rainy season and dry season. That's Florida.
It is warm here. We're not going to talk about weather, but um, you are, I did want to bring up because I talked to Doc and Matt on the Dynasty Dingers podcast. You're a friend of theirs, and he was talking about raw milk. And then last time I, I just went for a 4 mile run. So I run. Shout out to me. A little brag there. I'm in good shape. Everybody look at me. And I remember you last time. You even maybe in your Twitter profile or something. There's some stuff about Spartan business, and then you said that you've sworn off the all the food, all the poison food, right? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the thing in my profile is actually like a website I started a while ago because I've had this goal since I turned 25 to be able to have enough money that I can retire by the time I'm 40. And I'm actually like at that point, I'm 37. I could just
Ah,
retire if I wanted to. But the problem now is I'm trapped in my own businesses because I have 7 businesses. And so like the only way I can retire now and actually like get the value of my businesses would be to sell them.
saw them all.
So
Yeah.
that alone is its like own kind of mission. Like if you sold a house, it's like that, but on steroids. So selling businesses is a whole other thing. So like you can get businesses going and then make money, and then it's like, oh, now you're
Yeah.
trapped in your own business because you've created your own prison, basically. So that's what I have done. Uh, I mean, I could of course just shut everything down, but then you lose all that value that you created. So it's kind of dumb to do that. But anyway, in regards to the health stuff,
Well,
uh,
so you're gonna live. You're gonna go on and to tell us why you're gonna live till 90 or 100 or whatever. But then you're
yeah.
gonna retire at 40. What do you do for 40, 50 more years? That is another
Well,
question.
then I'll have more time for baseball stuff
Yeah.
and blowing everybody away with my magnificent content.
Yeah.
So, and until some baseball team hires me, and then I can,
You
live
don't want to do that.
out for a
Yeah.
baseball team or whatever. But
Don't do
uh,
that.
anyway, yeah. So, as in regards to the healthy stuff, my wife is really big into like homesteading. So I have like an
Right.
acre and a half where I live in Jupiter, and my neighbors all have chickens. I have 4 children, and they're all small, and she's pregnant again. So like once she's finally done having little babies, and they can all like move, walk on their own, the goal is going to be I want to get chickens, I want to get goats, so I can get my own milk. I want to get a llama, so that it can like kick the crap out of the coyotes that try to kill my chickens and my
Okay.
goats. And the bobcat. We got bobcats here too, because I'm like kind of like out right near the
The
Everglades.
alligators and such. Florida's so crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never seen an alligator anywhere near any of my properties, but I have
All
seen
right.
coyotes and bobcats, which are basically everywhere. There's like this whole like coyote nation thing where they're just like all over the
So then
place.
you'll make your own food. You don't have to buy from anybody else.
Well, partially. I mean, like I'll still have to buy stuff because like I have some
Yeah,
trees. Like I've got like I've got a Florida avocado tree, which Florida avocados are boss. They're like as big
that's
as your
cool.
head. So they're way better than like the little small Haas
Wow.
avocados. And then I've got limes and lemons, so I can make drinks. But like I need like definitely next plan is to get a mango tree. That's the next tree. But as far as meat, I'm still gonna have to buy meat. So my wife, what she
Yeah,
does is she like buys a half cow from a butcher, like a local butcher, because nobody knows this, but Florida's number 1 export is not oranges, it's actually cattle. Which I learned because I was a history teacher before I got into my current businesses. But cattle is the number 1 export in Florida, so you can buy actually like tag team a cow if you want with like local people. And so we buy like half of a cow and get just
Pretty cheap.
get a ton of meat all at once.
But what do your kids not eat? I can get into it. Like I've been more and more into the like try to not have any sugar and like processed stuff. Not there at all, but certainly more. Like I used to drink a lot of Coke and pop and stuff, and that's just gone. Like I can't believe that stuff's even legal at this point. So good though, just so
It's
tastes so
fuel.
good. Yeah.
It's jet fuel.
And anyway, but then with kids, it's like, how do you feed kids without processed stuff? I mean,
you start them early. So if you don't get them eating that kind of crap at the beginning,
they don't
even know it really exists. So like,
Right.
it's funny because I'll take them places, or like they'll go to the doctor's office or whatever, and the doctor will try to give them a lollipop and they don't even want it. They're like, I don't even know what this thing is. Like you just look at it like, what are you trying to stick in my mouth here?
Right.
So like basically if you get them started young, then it's good. Cause like all my kids eat meat. And then like my wife has been big at, like, we've always had, like, even my first kid who's 5 now, we had like little blenders, like mini blenders, and we would just get meat and like grind it. So basically like a lot of the meat I get, I buy. And so like there's a place here in Florida that's called Wild Fork, and you can get stuff like game elk. So like I eat a ton of elk. You can get like really good steak. They've got the best skirt steaks if you're into like Spanish style cooking. You do like Tarasco steak and it's fire. And then also you can buy like ostrich. You can get gator if you want, but like ostrich is actually awesome. Like it makes chicken. If you eat ostrich, you will not even want chicken or turkey again because ostrich is so good.
Okay. All right. Lots to learn. I need to come down. My wife and I are definitely gonna, once our kids get a little older, we're gonna go on vacations again. We haven't done that. We got on vacation, a big family vacation, but her and I maybe are gonna start going to some spring training stuff. I'm lining people up to come meet, and you're at the top of the list.
Come visit.
Some ostrich, and hopefully avoid the alligators because that terrified me the one time I was there.
They're only in the middle. As long as you're not in the middle of the state. If you hit the coast, you won't even see them.
Okay, I mean, I was at Bradenton, and I mean, it was like a resort where it was like a mini golf course where they put them in the middle. It wasn't like they were just wild, like running loose. But I'm pretty terrified.
That's Central Florida, man. The storms there are crazy. It's like I went to UCF for my master's, so like you get tons of crazy storms there. So it probably blew there. Like there's a place called Dry Tortugas outside of the Keys. It's like you have to take like an extra like hour and a half or 2-hour boat ride from Key West to get there. And it's like the furthest south, whatever island. And it's like a fort. It's super cool. They've got like awesome like diving and snorkeling. And you can't, it's just an old fort there. That was a Civil War fort. And you can actually camp there and stay there the night. But the only way to get there is by boat or by seaplane because it's so far away. And so like if you go there, there's one gator that like blew from a hurricane from the mainland over there. And so like if you're like snorkeling or diving or whatever, and you're just like, oh, this is cool, you just have to watch out for the one gator. That's
the
like
one. Luckily not
one gator on the island, and that's it.
Not like a Noah's Ark situation where 2 of them came and then they ended up having a bunch of kids, just
no.
the one.
Well, the problem about gators is that apparently they like live forever. They'll just keep getting bigger and bigger as long as there's food, and so like they'll live like hundreds of years. They're like dinosaurs.
Eventually find a mate. We got to stop. All right, we're 8 minutes into this. I try to keep it to 5 minutes. I'm more than willing to go into non-baseball stuff, but it's mixed results in terms of what people care about. But what Tim's going to do here is give us a list of. So I'm not a prospect guy. I maybe will get there someday. I still think it's all pretty much BS, and I think you people are just making stuff up. And again, there's no way to ever check your work, but we're going to try to do it in a way today that we can actually check the work and actually be beneficial to my concentrated audience, which is people doing like kind of standard redraft. Not crazy deep leagues, right? That's what we're looking at today. We're going to talk about prospects, but we're going to talk about guys that we're not talking about. Like I talked with Doc Dynasty about Vlad Guerrero's third kid or whatever, who's 19 years old. We're not doing that. We're talking about guys that will impact the league this year. Now, you might not want to draft these guys depending on your league stuff. It's like in my main league, right? Like I don't want to waste a roster spot for. We'll talk. The first guy you're going to bring up is a good example of that. I want this guy when he's in the league, gets promoted, but I don't really have I don't want to waste a bench spot on them for a month and a half. So anyway, but these are guys that maybe you're not drafting. Maybe we're not telling you to draft them, but maybe just be the guy as soon as you hear that the call up is there. Be there to pick them up, or kind of maybe go a week ahead and your auction or whatever it is. So
or unless you're in a DC.
Yeah. Yes. And these are guys you would draft in those situations. But basically, the podcast is prospects to help you this year. And Tim has ordered a bunch, and we'll talk about them. I'm not going to talk. I'll show you some numbers and stuff on dashboards that I have as he brings them up. Also, the F scores will be a major component of this. If you're not familiar with him, he does F scores, standing for fantasy scores. So he goes through, and I actually got to see the whole thing. He showed me the whole process because I told him, so I lied to him. I said, hey man, I can easily do Python and make all that manual work you do really easy. And then he showed me what he does, and I was like, no, I got to take that back. I mean, you could do it, but it is not as simple. I thought it was as simple as, let me get all these numbers from Fangraphs, which I can do with a Python script, and then just do some calculations. But no, you have a lot more going on. We don't get into that. We've talked about that on your podcast, and you can find him at the Fantasy Aceball podcast. Certainly talks a lot about that. But anyway, Tim is like the content I bring. It's not just, it's not, hey, this guy's got nice hips and a good face and all these scout talking point weird stuff. The ugly girlfriend thing from Moneyball, which I watched last weekend. Maybe there's something to that, but you are numbers centric, and that's what we're focusing on. So let's go. We'll hit a bunch, but we'll try to keep this podcast to, I don't know, an hour or so. So let's go with Tim. You start talking about your number one. I'll share the screen and we'll get into some numbers.
All right. So I'm going to preface this by mentioning that we kind of started this podcast saying that this is going to be post 400 for ADP on NFBC. And really, I did a post 450 because some of the names were just too obvious, and I didn't really want to talk about any of those guys. So my number one here is starting post 450 if you're looking at NFBC. So number one, I've got Quinn Matthews, who actually pitched this morning as of we're recording, and he struck out Vladito. Talking about Vlad Jr., he actually struck him out. So Quinn Matthews is a lefty in the Cardinals organization, and it's a little bit of a telltale sign on where they see him, because the only non-Cardinal starters who are planning to actually start, quote unquote, start a game in spring training are going to be Michael McGreevy and Quinn Matthews. And if we get to McGreevy, we'll talk about McGreevy too. So those are the only two of the Cardinal starters, besides their 5 actual guys that they're paying big money to, that are going to make starts this spring. Whereas a lot of these other guys that you think, oh, that's a starter, whatever, are just in a piggyback role for spring, right? So it's actually a good sign if these prospects are making real starts instead of just piggyback role type things. And I talked about with Kurland about that on my podcast when we're trying to project out rosters, who might win spring training battles, that type of stuff. But Quinn Matthews I have as my number 23 overall prospect. And by F scores, my F scores actually have him as number 67 pitcher for this season. That, based on his projected number of innings, including in the major leagues, he will start, or he will finish as the number 67 pitcher. Based on my F scores, based on roughly 120 or something major league innings this year.
So what we're seeing here, this is my main, it's kind of just the box score data dashboard, doesn't have the advanced stuff, but yeah. I stumbled across Quinn Matthews in the Cardinals preview, and it obviously pops. I mean, 143 innings last year. That is rare to see in the minors. So fully ready, 160, 170 innings, 35% K rate. Walk rate, we don't really care too much about, but I mean, lower is better. There's random stuff. It's hard to correlate, like we've talked about. AAA to major leagues is kind of no correlation at all, but you would still rather have a sub 9% walk rate than what we see with other guys, 13, 14%. Not a home run issue. So he's a big left-handed pitcher, right?
Yeah. Also, he has had a 16.1 swing strike rate. So if you're trying to project out, hey, are the strikeouts just made up? No, he actually had a pretty good swing strike rate too. And he has a nice 4-pitch mix. This is one of the other things is in the minors, you can run into a lot of pitchers that only have 2 really good pitches, and they're just striking out everybody on a sick fastball slider combination. But Matthews also has a killer changeup. We actually saw it today. If anyone was watching his start against the Blue Jays, he was
wait. Let me stop you there. Check this out. The live game tracker developed by me in the past few days. We can show it. His outing's over, he said, but he did pitch today.
Yes, 2 innings.
And here he is. 4-seamer, slider, changeup, sinker today.
Yeah, there we go. See, look at that. The sinker is actually a new pitch from him. So he was working in that new pitch. He did not throw it last year. Last year he was fastball, slider, curve, changeup. So he didn't even throw the curve. He was just sticking to the sinker. It
It
looks
was
like
last year.
trying his new stuff today anyway. But fastball, slider, changeup are all plus pitches for Quinn Matthews, who is a lefty who is known for being a workhorse. And like one of the things that kind of made him infamous before he got famous last year as a Cardinals prospect was in the College World Series, he threw 154 innings in one or pitches in one game. So he's kind of a workhorse already. He showed that last year with 143 innings in the minors. And that's why I think that even if he does start the year in the minors, he's probably good for 180 innings this year. As long as, it's a pitcher. So as long as he doesn't get hurt, like he could be good for 180 innings. So even if he puts in 5-6 starts or whatever in the minors, you could still get a good 120, 130 innings out of him.
Seems pretty clear he's the second best pitcher in the Cardinal system. Would that be fair to say? Sonny Gray?
I would say that he's the second best pitcher for the Cardinals.
So it definitely shouldn't be long. Maybe they want to play the service time game, but I don't know. Like the Cardinals are going with Michaelis, Fetty, Liberator, maybe. I mean, it's ugly.
Nah, no. He's a reliever. So what they're going to go with, if you're looking at depth chart, you've got Steven Matz in there, who probably should be traded, but obviously you've got Michaelis, Fetty, and Sonny Gray at the top. And then at the bottom, you've got Andre Palante, who was actually very effective last year, even though a lot of that was based on luck. And the dude had like a 68% ground ball rate or something insane like that due to his death ball. And then you've got Michael McGreevy in the mix too. So McGreevy is probably ahead of Quinn Matthews on the depth chart just because he's already been called up and he pitched really well last year in his little small sample size. So Michael McGreevy is probably the next man up behind Matthews, which is why the Cardinals are kind of listening on guys like Matz and Fetty right now while they can. So like they would probably trade one of those guys if they can and then make room for McGreevy to open on the roster. And then Quinn Matthews would be maybe like a May call up would be my guess.
Okay. Yeah, checks all the boxes. Kind of what I'm looking for if I'm choosing to actually use a spot on a minor league guy would be high swing strike rate, a lot of innings last year, high K to walk. He's got all of that, and there's certainly a job for him. So I'm not surprised to hear that as your number one. He definitely stood out to me. Probably someone if you don't have if you have an NA spot or whatever they call, I think Yahoo, it's called like there's one spot for minor leaguers. I'd prioritize him for you kind of standard league guys. And, maybe even if you don't want to draft him and hold him, probably, like you said, it shouldn't be long. If it's April 30th or whatever, end of April, and even if he's still not called up, maybe now that would be the time. Add him then. If you have a week or two, it shouldn't be much longer after that. Use that roster spot. So that's Quinn Matthews. I'm fully on board with that. And now we can move to number 2. We'll try to. I need to realize that probably most people are going to just be listening to this, so I will try to say the numbers I'm showing rather than just show them as well. So, all right, number 2, Tim.
Numero dos is Chase DeLauter with the Guardians. I thought he was going to break camp last year. Like he was so good in spring last year. I was like, okay, he's going to finally break camp. His big issue has always been injuries. So as long as DeLauter is healthy, there's really nothing stopping him from breaking camp and starting with the Guardians this year, except for Will Brennan, who is like the most below average player of all time for fantasy baseball. So I think that Chase DeLauter has a pretty good shot of, as long as he maintains health and has a decent spring, he could break camp as the starter for the Guardians in the outfield. Really good hit tool. He's a doubles machine. He had 32 doubles in 96 games over his last 2 seasons. So basically, he in the minors, he was hitting, and this isn't double A and triple A, a double every 3rd game. So 1 out of every 3 games, he's got a double. But the bad thing is only 96 games in 2 seasons. That's pretty atrocious. Yeah. So the main thing is if he can stay healthy. Like my comp for him is kind of like I combine because he's a lefty. So like I kind of see him as like a Josh Lowe, or I guess he's a Josh Lowe combo with like a lefty Matt Holliday. Because if you remember, Matt Holliday was more like a 25 homer guy with a bunch of doubles. So I think that's kind of like what you could get out of a profile from DeLauter. Like once he's like hitting his peak, it's just like 40 doubles, like mad doubles, but only probably like 25 homer power and throwing a few steals, like, 6-8 steals. So I think, you've got a good hitter here. Like he's a really good hitter. It's just, can he stay healthy?
When you say hit tool, you mean kind of contact, walk, strikeout stuff?
Yeah, so on F scores, he rates out as a 98 F contact right now. So if he made the majors, like if he was a major league hitter right now, he'd be basically an average hitter as far as contact tool by my F scores, which is actually really hard. Like a lot of my prospects, they're very toolsy and they'll rate in like the 80s on contact because that means like, okay, this player has a lot of really good tools that could play in the majors now, but their hit tool is way behind. So they would not be very good in the majors. They might hit like under 200 or something like that. So like DeLauter is with a 98 F contact. That's actually pretty good for prospect. That just means that like when he comes to the majors, he's not going to probably hit these like crazy prospect struggles that you see where guys go for like, oh, for like 60 or whatever. Like I expect him to come in and actually like put up decent batting average. And he's got good plate skills straight from the jump. The thing is like, he'll probably like, if he played a full season this year, you might get like 18 bomb. You might get like a 260 hitter with like 18 bombs and like 9 steals or something like that, 8 or 9 steals, something like that, which is pretty good. You know, that's a really solid player. Like that could be your outfield 3. That could be your outfield 4 pretty easily in most leagues.
Okay. Yeah. Do you see the on the screen? I have kind of his minor league career. It's not a long one. Must have been drafted in 2023. Looks like probably. So yeah, under 13% K rate. This is career. 12.8% K rate, 9.2% walk rate. Last year, you even got those two closer. K's 13.5%, walks 11.6%. I looked at him a bit, and I try to just stick to the more advanced data when I'm trying to make my guesses. And he wasn't in AAA. He only has like maybe, I don't know, what is this, 5 or 6 games, less than 10 games in AAA. So I didn't really have much data to kind of measure the power, but maxed out at 103 miles an hour. We should throw that out, I guess. It's so little, but I was just wondering if he could be like a 15 to 20 homer threat, but it sounds like you believe in that. And the slugging should be okay as well. Get a lot of balls in play, and it sounds like he's got some gaps power or something like that. So I was down on him. I won't be drafting him in any kind of standard league where it's a bench spot, but yeah, like in a 4 outfield, 5 outfield league, when he comes up, seems to be worth a shot. You know, when you're in these like leagues, typically let's say you're in a 12-man league with 4 outfielders. I don't know, like your fourth outfielder is somebody you can cut. You know, it's never going to be someone that you're not. You know, you're going to kick yourself for dropping. So DeLauter, Cleveland outfielder, we'll see even a chance to be the opening day left or right fielder for them, whatever it is. So that's number 2.
One of the things too, just to end on him, is when I'm evaluating hitters and how I think they're going to perform when they first jump to the majors, plate skills matter a lot more than you might think. Even if you're in a roto league and like there's no walks, it doesn't really matter. Who cares, right? But when I look at walk rate and K rate, that's going to show me what player is not going to struggle when they first hit the majors. So that's like one big reason, even if you're in a roto league, to look at the plate skills, look at walks and Ks, because if you have a low K rate and a high walk rate, then you're probably going to jump pretty well because he had an 11.6 walk rate and a 13.4 K rate. So it just shows that he's making good swing decisions, and he may not struggle when he starts seeing, you know, way better pitching in the majors right from the jump.
Yeah. It'd just be nice to believe that with him, someone like that, like, you know, Stephen Kwan, Luis Ariz, whatever, those are the extreme examples, but guys that can make a lot of contact and take walks, but if they're not hitting, you got to hit a home run every couple weeks to stay relevant for fantasy, but we'll see if he can do that. How about number 3? It looks like, I don't think there's much question about this guy's power, but some playing time and shorter sample guys with your number 3. It's Nick Kurtz from the Athletics, so take it from there.
Yeah, Nick Kurtz. So this is kind of like the Wyatt Langford of last season because he came up and just mashed straight from like getting drafted. And then
drafted last summer, right?
Yeah, he got drafted last summer by the Athletics, and he was picked ahead of Jack. And so like people are like, oh, you know, Cags is better, and you heard all this. Oh, he was picked at, you know, Condon's better. You started hearing this kind of thing, but he was great straight from the jump, just like how Langford was right when he got drafted. And so there is a possibility that he breaks camp, but my guess would be that the Athletics kind of want to see what they have in Tyler Soderstrom first, even though Soderstrom strikes out a ton. So like if Soderstrom comes out and is striking out like 35% of the time or something to start the year, there's a good chance that they're just like, okay, this is cool and all, but we're going to move you to like some dual DH first base backup catcher type role, and we're going to just let Kurtz run with it. The Athletics seem to be kind of like aggressive right now for like, it's kind of weird, but like they were pretty aggressive with the Jacob Wilson call up last year, and then he got hurt. And then also like they've been pretty aggressive by like, instead of trading Rooker, they signed him long-term. and then they signed Severino, and they're like just doing some things that are kind of showing, okay, we actually want to like do some things, and we kind of like the guys that we have, and we think we might be able to compete. And so like if the Athletics really want to compete, like Nick Kurtz could be their best hitter. Like I've mentioned on other podcasts that I think I actually mentioned this on the STS podcast that when I did a first year player draft with them, I mentioned that I think Kurtz could put up like Christian Walker like numbers straight from the beginning. Like my F scores absolutely adore this guy. 106 F contact, 129 discipline, 115 power. That's insane for
So did you use
rookie.
college data for that?
Yeah. So basically, I have college data, and I just use correlation tables. Like I've shown you them before, where like I have different correlations based on whatever level that player is playing at, and then I correlate from whatever level they're at to the majors, so that I like the statistical sample size that I'm using is actually like valid in some way or fashion.
Yeah.
It's never perfect in college because it all kind of depends. Okay, what is their competition they're playing against? Are they
and it's a bat
pitchers? They're using aluminum bats, so like
right.
It's. And it never is a really great comp, especially even in the minors, right? You've got like crazy park factors in the minors. If you have guys who are playing in the PCL versus guys who are playing in like Florida or Mississippi, it's just completely different worlds. So you always have to take a little bit of that data with a grain of salt. And when I'm doing this, I'm synthesizing the best way that I know how to. Like I'm sure that like if I actually, did sell all my businesses and I had 1 million hours to work on this, I could get it even more granular and perfect it even more. But I think that the data that spits out is actually pretty good. Like that scores did pretty good because last year was the first year I used it for prospects, and it worked. It worked surprisingly well. I'm going to say that. But nothing when it comes to prospecting is ever perfect. But Kurtz is a guy that when he gets up, he could be a monster straight from getting up. And it's just like all about the opportunity. So how aggressive are the Athletics going to be? Is Soderstrom going to be good or is he going to suck? Is like another thing that's going to kind of play into this.
The DH, Rooker is pretty much the DH, right? So it is.
Well, Rooker is supposed to play in the outfield this year. So if you're drafting Rooker, you're actually going to get outfield eligibility from Rooker because they have Rooker and Blade in the outfield. And then they've kind of got this gap where they've got like Seth Brown hanging around. He kind of sucks. But they've got like obviously Espery Ruiz is still on the team. You've got Denzel Clark hanging around, and you've got Colby Thomas, who's another prospect who we may hit in this pod. But I like Kurtz a lot. I think that he's probably like if he keeps mashing the way he was at Fall League and at the end of the season last year, like he's another guy like Quinn Matthews who could be up in May. I don't know if he breaks camp. Like I'd put that as like a highly unlikely that he breaks camp, but I'd say that he's up relatively early in the season.
Okay, yeah, we were seeing that he got drafted. And then he debuted in August, went to single A for 35 plate appearances, hit 4 homers real quick, slugged 960, got a quick call up for looks like 3 games in Double A at the end of the year, 15 plate appearances. So not even really worth telling you what his stats were. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, this is a big ask for someone to go from college to the major leagues in whatever would be 10 months or something. But you believe in it. I guess a separate conversation is that this. I can't really imagine going from a aluminum metal bat to a wood bat. Like, are there guys that just can't quite handle that? Or there's got to be some adjustment period, right? I mean, I guess he kind of proved that he did pretty well with the wood bat in the 50 PAs last year in the minors. And then you said he was in the Arizona Fall League as well and didn't have any troubles there. So, okay, so I'm going to watch. I would not suggest, I would not think that, I guess I don't know, keep a look at the Athletics news to see if they're really thinking about it, but that would be really aggressive to have him in the majors right away with being drafted such a short time ago. So,
yeah.
All right, that's Nick Kurtz.
Again, more walks than Ks. That's another thing that's really important for quick adjustment to the majors. More walks than
He has
Ks.
never faced a pitcher anywhere near what he'll see in the majors. So always a higher risk with that kind of stuff. Yeah. All right, number 4, another hitter, looks like another power hitter.
Yep, Emmanuel Rodriguez with the Twins. This dude is power, speed, again, fantastic plate skills. I mean, like depending on how you take that, like he walks a ton, but also strikes out a ton. And I think I heard Clegg say this, but this was like such a comp that it like sticks in my mind. But I think it was Clegg. I don't know. I don't want to give someone miscredit someone, but I heard somebody say that Emmanuel Rodriguez is basically Max Muncy with speed. And I'm like, that's actually like right on, because it's just this dude is just 25% walk rate, almost 30% K rate, but then just in 47 games last year, 9 bombs and 9 steals.
So he doesn't swing.
And 25 extra base hits. Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. But like he had near a 115 max EV, so he's got power.
Yeah, I was showing that 114.6 last year on the max. That's not many major leaguers can do that, so that's a good sign.
Yep, and then again, 9.4 swinging strike rate only. So like But the problem here is like his swing rate is really low, 33.3% swing rate. So like you said, he doesn't swing. So it's like this seems to be kind of like maybe a Twins problem, right? Where like the Twins guys have this issue where it's like we just saw this with Julian, where it's like, okay, you got to swing the bat a little bit here. You can't just wait for the perfect pitch every time. So, but he hits the ball hard enough, and like even if he is like a 230 batting average, 240 batting average, the power speed you're going to get, like if you get Max Muncy plus 20 steals, like that's a good player. It's just you got to work around the batting average a little bit if he's not going to hit for a high batting average. So it might be one of those guys where you have to adjust your format, or you have to draft like talking about Jacob Wilson, you have to draft like Jacob Wilson or Luis Arias or something like that just to counter like a possible bad batting average with him. But like if you're in a points league, I think this dude's going to be a stud. Like if you are in some sort of OBP or points format, this is like the guy that you want to target, because he's going to be better than like some of these batting average types. Like if I'm in a points or an OBP, I would like longer term or for like back end of the season, I would take Emmanuel Rodriguez over Dylan Cruz, for instance.
Okay. Will he play against lefties?
I think so. I have not seen bad splits. It's not like an Evan Carter situation from what I've seen.
So I can, on this dashboard I'm showing on the screen, if you're not watching, the MILB, the minor league StatCast data, we must have had a couple injuries for Rodriguez last year. Didn't seem like he played most of the year, but 43 plate appearances against lefties. Nothing you can really learn from that. Again, 40 plate appearances, but I mean, 515 slug, hit a homer, 25.6% K rate. I still didn't swing at all, but 21% walk rate. So it's pretty much the same for what that's worth. Just wanted to show that like this tool is available. My question was, like I was doing my rankings and stuff. I was focused mostly on those leagues where batting average is one of the 5 or 6 categories, and almost no chance he hits for a decent batting average. I mean, 20, mid 20s K in the minors with that low swing rate. It means he's taking a lot of strikes. I would guess that minor league pitchers are a little bit afraid of him because, minor league pitchers are worried about their numbers as well. And he's the best hitter in the lineup they're facing. So maybe they work around him a little bit. And you see major leaguers, that's less likely to happen. They're probably just going to attack the guy, at least make him show it. So you might get fewer walks in that. And then if he really can't make contact, then this K rate could kind of go nuts and the batting average could be really rough. But yeah, raw power. I don't know how do you determine like, because the walk rate is so high, but he like almost anybody could have a high walk rate if they just didn't swing. If everybody swung 30% of the time, which is absurdly low, like how do you kind of navigate around, even if, what part of this is I know what pitches to swing at and what part of it is just I don't want to swing at anything? It's harder to answer.
Yeah, exactly. It is really hard to answer, and you don't really know. And then again, someone could completely change the way that they go about their business, right? Like he could do. There's a very good chance a coach came to him and was like, "Dude, you hit the crap out of the ball. You should probably be a little more aggressive with your swinging. Like you don't have to wait for the perfect pitch every time. Let's get a little more aggressive earlier on the counts because I think you could do more damage and drive more guys in that way. Because you don't want power hitters who just sit there and take walks. You want power hitters who are going to drive in runs. That's really what you want in baseball. You know what I mean? So like otherwise,
the Joey Gallo 2018 or whatever, it was just like 40 homers. He's one good season, 40 homers and a crazy walk rate. It was like I'll walk or strike out 60% of the time, and then every once in a while hit home runs. So.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the cautionary tale that if I was a coach and I was like the coach for this guy's team, I'd be like, hey, Joey Gallo was good. He got paid, but like, you don't want to be that, like you want to be, it's better to be this guy and, just show like Teoscar Hernandez or something, like a guy who maybe doesn't have the best plate discipline, but the dude, brings in 100 runs every year. So, or like Marcell Ozuna, it's better to be Marcell Ozuna than it is to be Joey Gallo. So, like just get a little more aggressive there.
Yeah. Especially when you have contact issues, if you're going to be whipping a lot, if you're swinging the bat really hard and trying to drive it, like you don't want to take 2 strikes because that whiff will put you on the bench again. So, all right, number 5, we're going to go to a pitcher who we've actually seen before. You're going to have to tell me on this because it's Rhett Lowder, Reds. We saw him late in the year last year. His ERA was amazing, but it was like the luckiest ERA in like world history, I think. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Rhett Lowder looked, again, good like box score results last year for the Reds, but everything under the hood looked terrible. But we're going to focus more on the minor league career here as he is a pretty small major league sample. So make the case for Rhett Lowder.
Yeah, I think that's more happenstance about the Sierra and ERA. Like he only pitched 30 innings last year in the majors.
Yeah.
So, like, over time, I think he's going to be more like the comp that I threw on him is Logan Webb. I think that's the type of pitcher he's going to be because he's not going to strike the world out. He's got decent enough stuff that he could be like, he can get you 8K per nine or something like that. So, like, he's going to get some strikeouts, but he's not going to be this like super strikeout guy. So I think he projects more to be like a number 3 or maybe like a really good like number 2. I mean, like Framber. I mean, Framber and Logan Webb have that type of profile, and they both ended up being number 1s just based on quantity. So like if you pitch enough, then you can make that happen. His issue is that his home ballpark is not San Francisco. It is Great American Ballpark, or like I like to call it, Great Americans Ballpark. So the main thing for him is that I think that he could be more successful than a guy like Nick Lodolo, even though Lodolo has way better stuff, just because Lodolo also gets knocked around a little bit. And I think Lowder is pretty good about keeping the ball on the ground and avoiding massive damage. And he's shown that his whole career from like back when he was at Wake Forest through the minors. And I just think that he's the type of pitcher that based on his stuff, he's like a bad contact pitcher, right? Like he's more likely, and I know it's not, we talked about it on my podcast, that it's not the stickiest stat, unless you're like Emmanuel Clase, but like his stuff is just like, it cuts in a way that it's not going to give up a ton of hard damage. Like it's hard to square up his stuff. That's just how his stuff works. It's easier maybe to make contact on it so he won't get the strikeouts, but it's harder to square up.
Yeah, 39% ground ball rate in the majors, only 500 pitches though. 9.4% swing and strike rate. The K rate was low, 17%. So you're saying that we should expect this is a MLB Savant number, by the way. You're usually talking about FanGraphs. I think ground ball rate translates pretty closely, but not always the same. But anyway, 39% ground ball rate is pretty low for me. You think it'll come up this year?
Yeah, I think so. Based on his track record and his pitches, like in the minors last year, he had a 51.7% ground ball rate between all levels. So like, I think he's more like in the majors, maybe he doesn't reach the 50% threshold, but he should be in like the high 40% for ground ball rate.
Slider, four-seamer, sinker, changeup, all pretty evenly distributed. I don't really think of sliders and four-seamers as ground ball pitches. Those are typically the ones that go in the air. If you're seeing the table here, maybe just more of a data lesson. On the Arsenals tab of the main MLB dashboard for my subscribers have access to this, although anybody who's watching this can actually go to that URL and just type it down. And if you're good enough at typing, then you can have it for free, I guess, because I didn't hide it. There you go. I can't actually paywall Tableau. There's a little secret. So whatever, steal it if you want. But the two lowest ground ball rate pitch types are the four-seamer at 33%, the slider at 42%, and then a sweeper right around there as well. So when I'm seeing four-seamer and slider over 50% of the time, I would kind of think that's a high fly ball rate pitcher, but not all sliders are the same, especially these days. It seems like there's a lot of different shapes, especially four-seamers like your boy Palante and the Cardinals taught me a lesson about that. He has this four-seamer with like a 70% ground ball rate that makes no sense, but it's not really like they have to call it something. So, and we're getting more and more into that. And that's another topic for discussion is that like we have the spike change and the death ball that you said, and these fork balls and all this crazy stuff that don't even fit one of these basic classifications. I personally hate that. I'd like to keep it to 8 pitches. Like that's enough for me. I denied the knuckle curve, right? So every day my data comes in and Major League Baseball will tell me that Zach Allen throws a knuckle curve. I say, no, I reject that. I'm calling it a curveball and we're not letting it into we're not letting any knuckle business come into my dashboards. I'm going to have to continue to do that at least because I would imagine in 3 years, this table, if I let them all in, will be like a dozen pitches long as we add different classifications for these different pitch types. Again, different discussion. And I think that's good. I don't think you should call 2 different pitches the same name, but for my purposes, that's like, the simpler the better. But anyway, yeah, I have no intention of drafting Lowder. Just, I got scared away by the 17% K rate in the majors. But you make an interesting case for him, and certainly a young guy, a lot of different ways you can go at that age. So anything more on Lowder?
I've just got him ranked over the full course of the season at 85. And like I said, you're not going to get a ton of Ks with that. So maybe he's like a back end starter for you, but he does stay relatively healthy. He's got a nice innings backlog. So I think he can pitch a decent amount of innings and not be bad for you as far as like a K rate, just kind of be at, slightly below average. But then I feel like he's going to provide you better ratios. I think those ratios are going to improve upon last year.
Okay. ADP coming up. He's about looks like high 400s, mid 470 or so right now. If you're seeing the screen, you can see the draft pick trend on NFBC. So yeah, like what about a 12-team league where there's 90 pitchers owned? You would say that you should draft him in that league? Would you say he was ranked for you?
I've got him at 85.
Okay, so about the end, maybe just like a last round flyer pick or something in a normal league.
Yeah, I've got him on a couple teams as like my back, like not as a starting pitcher, like if you're running like a nine pitcher league, but as like the next guy off the bench, basically.
Okay, cool. Number 6, another hitter, another guy that was just in college last year, Christian Moore with the Angels. Angels, of course, have a very interesting track record with a couple guys in the recent years going from college to the majors very quick. So you think that'll happen again with Christian Moore? Give us the case there.
Yeah, I actually was talking with Kurland about it on my podcast, and the dude, apparently the Angels are giving him a chance to break camp as the starting second baseman, and
Crazy.
he's also playing third base right now because, I mean, third base is just Yohan Moncada and the corpse of Anthony Rendon, who can't play this year. So, you know, like he has a good shot there. And then you've got Rengifo right now starting at second base. And Rengifo, I think that the Angels want to make more like a super sub guy, especially when you've got like Neto hurt and stuff like that. So it makes more sense when Rengifo can play like 5 different positions to let him just kind of move around and backfill for injured guys and let Moore hit second. The Angels are infamous for doing this, so it makes a lot of sense that he would just make the jump. He had an insane, just like Kurtz, he had an insane jump through the minors last year, right after getting drafted.
Why do they do this? 12 plate appearances in single A. That's 2 games. Why? Or 3 games maybe. Why even do that? Why not just go straight to double A?
I don't know if that's a coaching thing or if this is, something where they're just like, okay, let's just move him up the levels and play around and see where he's at. Maybe they want to see what level he struggles at. Maybe the coach is an A-ball, right? And they saw him swinging and batting practice. Like, this guy's he's way too good for this level. And like, well, he's already here. Like, he's already here for the weekend. Might as well just let him play the weekend series. Or even like
being the guy that has to stitch the jersey for the single A team and then it gets thrown away 3 days later.
Yeah, or even like with Skeens, for instance, teams will do this because they want to throw a bone to the minor league teams where they make some money. So like if you live in that area where the Angels A-ball team is, you're like, oh, I'm definitely going to go see Christian Moore play for the weekend that he's here. So like they'll get a little boost in ticket sales and beer sales and whatever for their little weekend of Christian Moore. So that might be just throwing a bone to the minor leagues. But Christian Moore, the difference between Moore and Kurtz is that Moore, unlike Kurtz, has terrible plate skills. So even in A-ball and AA last year, 8% walk rate and a 26% K rate. So like he actually does make the jump from AA to the majors after coming off a 26% K rate at those levels. He's probably like, if he had a 35% K rate, it wouldn't surprise me. But he does have power. He does have a good hit tool despite, the swing and miss. So I just worry about that. Like I worry that he could struggle off the bat. And the Angels aren't going to do anything about it. They're just going to leave him in there because that's what the Angels do. So, like, if you want to get playing time and you want a second baseman who can probably hit, 18 to 20 bombs, or like a middle infielder probably by the time you're drafting Christian Moore because he's going at 605 on ADP, like that's pretty good for a guy who could break camp and maybe hit like 260 with 20 bombs. Even if he strikes out a ton, it's like, who cares? Because if you're playing Roto, it doesn't really matter. Maybe if you're playing in a points league, it matters a little bit. But like just depending on your format, I think Christian Moore is a really good bargain at around 600 for a dude who should break camp and start and could get multi-position eligibility between second and third.
Somebody got excited about him and took him at pick 356 in a 50s draft. So who knows who that was? But yeah, you're above pick 500. So I would wait on him. I don't think someone to wait and see. But I guess if you're doing your draft and they've already announced that Moore will make the team, which wouldn't be a shock, I guess it's the Angels. Someone to take a look at. But yeah, I don't think if you're rolling him out in a league where you need batting average and he does have like a 35% K rate, like Tim said that could happen. I don't know if I would hold him for that. Let's just see if he can improve over the long term. But yeah, it's hard to roster anybody with a ton of strikeouts because the batting average hurts so bad. So all right, that's Christian Moore. Let's rip through a few more. Let's go into detail on a few more, and then we'll just rip through some names at the end to get everybody these names. Number 7. Catcher, first baseman for the Marlins, Augustin Ramirez. Take it.
Yeah, so Ramirez, before he was traded, because if you remember when Jazz Chisholm was traded to the Yankees, this is the guy who came back to the Marlins. The main guy, anyway. They got a couple guys like Serna, but Ramirez is the main guy that they got back. he was touted by one of their coaches as like a future superstar. He had a really good time with the Yankees, but when he first got to the Marlins, he struggled. And I actually talked to Kurland, who is a Marlins fan, about Ramirez, and he was like, he's just not very good on the Marlins. But I had to point this out because he didn't even know this. But in his 20 final games for the Marlins, he figured it out at AAA, 286, 383, 486 slash, with 3 bombs and 2 steals. So he actually finished very strong with the Marlins. And I was telling Curlin, I was like, you don't know, dude, like this guy just moved from one place to another. Maybe he had, had to change his apartment, had apartment issues. Maybe he had a girlfriend in New York. Like who the hell knows what was happening with him at that time? But like, obviously he fixed it by the end of the season, which is very promising. The Marlins suck. So like they need as many good players as they can possibly get. And Ramirez could come in and be like a big time, hitter for them right off the bat. And he's such a good hitter that even in AAA, he was playing at DH when he was not catching. So he had, with the Marlins, 22 games at catcher and 17 at DH. So his bat is so good that he's the type of bat that you put in the lineup, just like Salvador Perez, where it's like, okay, even when this guy is not catching, we need this bat in the lineup, because he had exit velocity is up to 111. He had 25 bombs and 22 steals, 53 extra base hits last year. And again, the Marlins suck. So this is a dude who is going right now at 543 or something on ADP. This is a guy that I would target if you're in a 15-team, 2-catcher league, whatever. Like, this is a guy I want for catcher 2, or at least like a backup catcher 2, right? Maybe you get him to be your catcher 3, because if he's playing every day as a catcher, you could draft him to be your catcher 3 and then get like surprise, awesome, like catcher number 2 value from a guy once he's in the lineup every day, because there's no promise he's going to break camp. The Marlins are cheap. You got Bendix over there from the Rays, so they might play like playing time manipulation games with him, even though he's ready for the beginning of the season. But I don't think they can hold him off very much longer, because he already spent some time at AAA last year, and he's the prize of the Jazz trade. So like the Marlins got to sell tickets somehow. So it makes sense to like at some point bring this guy up.
Okay. Yeah. Always easier to make fantasy value at catcher. 18.5% K rate in the minors last year, 77% contact, 53% ground ball rate though. So maybe that keeps the homers down a little bit, but yeah, the exit velocity doesn't seem like a problem. Was consistently hitting balls above 105, 106, hit maxed out at 113 if you round up. So that's all good. And yeah, certainly a 2-catcher league, you're going to want to jump at him immediately as soon as he's called up. But I wouldn't think there's much chance for a team like the Marlins burning a year of service time potential on one of these guys. So maybe you're looking at him in May or June for some catching help. I think this is a good year to kind of take it easy at catcher in your draft, because there's a lot of guys in the middle of the year that could come up and replace. So I wouldn't spend money at catcher this year, with some exceptions, but lots of young catching talent in the league this year. And we'll shift over to an interesting guy who I think he was pitching today as well, Brewers pitcher, who I don't know. I guess you need to answer the question about what his role will be. It's Jacob Misiorowski, and correct my pronunciation on that if you know better. Go ahead.
I think you're pretty good. I think it's just Misiorowski, but like you say it faster. Yeah, you just say it faster, like super Polish. But anyway, this dude, insane stuff. Like we all saw it at the Futures game. Like his stuff is crazy. He rates out as a 108 on the stuff, which is actually better than Quinn Matthews, but the control is quite terrible. 88 control. I usually tell people if someone has like an under 90 control, like 90, like really it's more like 92, 93, they're probably going to be better as a reliever than as a starter. When I plug them into my score. So I think that like this dude, if the Marlins or if the Brewers wanted to do it, they could fill him in to be the closer right away, and he could be like Josh Hader 2.0. But it kind of depends on what they want to do. Do they want to kind of see if he can still be a starter? And this is going to actually affect some of the other guys too, because I really like Logan Henderson with the Brewers. So like if they want to keep Misiorowski as a starter, I think he's ahead of Logan Henderson on the depth chart, even though he didn't play at AAA and Logan Henderson did. I think Misiorowski has the higher upside potential. So if they're going to keep him as a starter, there's a reason for it. But this might end up being like a Hader / DL Hall / Aaron Ashby situation where the dude is just way better as a reliever than a starter and could be like a killer closer straight from the beginning. And obviously everybody saw, like anyone who's listening probably saw Craig Yoho's airbender the other day. So like now you've got this kind of matchup between Misiorowski and Yoho, and it's like, okay, who are the Brewers going to call up first between these guys? Because I think either of them could start or could close, because Trevor Megill, while he was very good last year, that's not necessarily the type of stuff you want in the closer role. Like I think he fits better as like a really solid setup guy than being a closer, kind of like a Jason Foley with the Tigers. It's like, okay, he did pretty well, but like he's not striking dudes out. Some of this is a little bit of an accident here. So like Mizrowski or Yoho could easily come in and fill that closer role for the Brewers. And it's like almost like take your shot at this point on which of those two guys you think is going to be up first and make the biggest impact.
Yeah, the one thing to say is that I don't know what an elite closer. Who's more valuable in real life, having an elite closer or having like a pretty good 3 starter? They're close, right? Like,
I would say having a number 3 starter, like
Yeah.
a pretty good number 3 starter, is more valuable from a team perspective because you're going to throw more innings. But it just all depends on what you're getting out of it, because it's like, will he be a number 3? He might walk so many guys that he can't even hit
right.
that. Like right
The
now,
point being that the upside for the Brewers' value is way higher at starter, so I don't see why they wouldn't give him a shot. But I mean, I guess we saw with Mason Miller kind of the same situation last year, and the Athletics were fine to. And I kind of thought last year that was okay. He's had all kinds of injury issues. Let's give him 1 year, keep him healthy, get some innings out of him, some experience, and then we'll try the starter thing again. But it seems like they're not going to do that. So maybe the teams do view that like an elite closer as worth, I don't know, just going there early on. But yeah, it wouldn't be surprising at all to see if they're just like 1 more year. Let's see. It does look like they shifted him to the bullpen late last year on my screen as his game logs. It looks like he was throwing, 15 to 25 pitches for the last month or so. Do you know about that? Was that just kind of workload maintenance?
No, well, I think they did it on purpose because he was having a lot. Like basically, they made him a starter, or he was a starter or they bumped him up a level or whatever, and then he was okay, and then he started walking a bunch of guys, and then on August 7th they made him a reliever again, and he had a 1.62 ERA with a 0.72 WHIP, 22 Ks and 7 walks in 16 2/3 innings as a reliever. So he was like significantly better as a reliever because he had like a 3.3 ERA and a 120 WHIP as a starter. But like I don't know. The Brewers have done this before, so that actually gives me like, because of what they did with Hader. Because remember, Hader was a starter too. It's like, what would they do with Hader? And even Corbin Burns, they made a reliever for a year before they made him a starter. People forget that. So like the Brewers have done this before, and they could very well make him a reliever just like they did with Corbin Burns for a year, and then make him a starter again, because his situation is different than Mason Miller's, because his situation is bad control, whereas Mason Miller's situation is injuries. So it's like, Mason Miller might not be able to handle that workload because he throws it so hard. Even though Mizrowski throws it 1-on-1 too, he like more slings it than kind of like
averaged 98 last year, as we see.
Yeah, he's got like a sling, kind of like catapult trebuchet arm action. It's kind of goofy when you watch it, but it's like it's pretty killer.
Trebuchet,
so
okay,
yeah. There's my former history teacher stuff coming in. So I think that like it just depends on what the Brewers want to do. He could be a really, really good reliever right now, or he could come in and start and just get blown up like Ashby and like ruin his confidence and make him really sad. So
we should know about that really soon. I think I heard he was going to pitch today. We'll see what that looks like and what the reports are about what they expect to do with him. But yeah, anybody with a high 90s fastball and a curveball cutter last year, 15.3% swinging strike rate overall, but he wasn't in AAA for very long, 295 pitches total, so hard to read into that. Another pitcher next, Sean Burke for the White Sox. This is kind of the opposite of Mizrowski. I would assume you're going to say maybe a safer option, maybe not quite the same ceiling.
Yeah, exactly. So Burke already pitched in the majors, and he was really good in his small sample size, almost a 20% K- walk rate. I mean, it's only 19 innings, but control is not good. But at least it's over 90. Like my F control on him is a 91. So he's like right on the threshold, more like Mizrowski and like Connor Phillips and guys like that are like under 90. It's like, no, it's a reliever. But he did pitch very, very well last year. And he had injury issues before. So even though he pitched really well last year, he only pitched like 90 innings between AA and the majors. So there might be some workload concerns. He might only get like 130, 140 innings. Like I would not expect more than 140 innings from him this year. And the White Sox also have a ton of dudes. So like, even if like he reaches his threshold, it's like, okay, they still have Thorpe and they still have Eater and they still have all these guys. They still have Hagen Smith and Noah Schultz down in the minors who could come up for a cup of coffee at the end of the year. And the White Sox are not going to be competing for anything. So it's like, there's no reason for them to extend him, because this is not a Crochet situation where he's in arbitration years and they have to like trade, like add value to him to trade him. They still have like many years of, I think he's still got 2 years before he's arbitration eligible. So there's no reason to just like maximize his value to trade him at this point. So like I think they're going to be really kind of watch his innings this year. So that's like the one thing with Burke is like, I think that innings thing is going to be, it'll play in at the end of the year. And the other thing too, is like, he only had a 26.2 CSW against like a pretty nice strikeout rate. So like there may have been, a little bit of luck involved. Again, we're only looking at 19 innings and none of these things have stabilized at that point. But, what I saw, you've got a good guy here who, as long as he can maintain the control gains that we saw at the end of the last year, like he's going to be a solid starter. If he can't, then he's not. So it's a bit of a gamble here for Sean Burke.
And we'll know pretty early he'll be in the opening day rotation, you'd think. He's 25, so a little bit older. He's the oldest guy we've talked about so far. Maybe that plays a little bit into the workload and stuff. I don't know. I just feel like he'd be more willing to really hold back a guy that's 22 rather than 25, but maybe I'm wrong about that. Let's recap this, and then we'll get a few more. So these are in order of how you should prioritize them when they come up or when they're, or if you have a spot to stash. Quinn Matthews, Cardinals pitcher. Chase DeLauter, Guardians outfielder. Nick Kurtz, Athletics first baseman. Emmanuel Rodriguez, Twins outfielder. Rhett Lowder, Reds starting pitcher. Christian Moore, Angels infielder. Augustin Ramirez, Marlins catcher, first base DH. We'll see. Jacob Misiorowski for the Brewers. He's a pitcher. Not sure if he'll go in the bullpen or starting role. And then we just talked about Sean Burke. Number 10, Colby Thomas. He was mentioned as you were talking about Kurtz before, but another Athletics outfielder, right?
Yeah, he's an outfielder for the Athletics. The only thing blocking him right now is Seth Brown in the Athletics outfield. And he had 80 extra base hits. He led all the minor leagues with 80 extra base hits last year, 31 bombs, a bunch of steals. So he was really good last year. Pretty bad plate skills. So like
31
I feel like
homers.
As a player,
that's a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like as a player, he's going to be kind of like an Adolis Garcia type because he just barrels the crap out of the ball. 27% line drive rate. It's just his issue is going to be strikeouts, and it's cool because you're going to get like for Roto, this is like the perfect guy you want really because he could just jump in there. Like he might break camp. There's a good chance because Seth Brown. I mean, come on, Seth Brown.
And but Rooker, isn't it Rooker? Rooker, Butler, and Blade in the outfield.
Yes, and then but Rooker is going to be outfield DH, kind of bumping around. I think what's going to happen is this is what's going to happen is Seth Brown is going to end up getting relegated at some point, and then you're going to have this situation where probably Soderstrom is going to move off of first and just be like a rotating catcher first DH, like I had mentioned, with Kurtz coming in at first. When that happens, there's going to be shared DH between like Rooker, Soderstrom. They're just going to mix and match with some of these guys. So Thomas could definitely step up and get a lot of playing time.
Okay. All right. Yeah, definitely a lot to watch with the Athletics. Are we going with Sacramento, or do we know what we're calling them?
They call themselves the Athletics, and that's it. So
weird.
Yeah, they do not recognize the city of Sacramento. If you're in Sacramento, you should be highly offended.
We've had the football team. We've had the Washington football team. We've had where I guess Cleveland went right to the Guardians, right? I don't know. We just have all these weird team name situations these days in these last few years that unprecedented. And it's another thing I've had to jack with the data because if you export anything from Fangraphs now, it'll give you ATH rather than the normal code OAK. So if you're using my dashboards, Oakland's gonna live on because I'm manually changing that ATH straight back to OAK. Because it's a database guy's nightmare, right? Like on this dashboard I'm showing, I have the whole way back to 2021. If all of a sudden if I want to look at Brent Rooker's history, then I pull down the team menu, I'm going to have two different teams on there. If I go with them, it's like this whole new organization, and it's not good for database stuff. So I'm going to stick with OAK until, I don't know, maybe until it turns into Las Vegas or something, but weird situation. All right, let's wrap it up. But you've got 11, 12, how many we got? 5 more names. How about let's go real quick through them. I'll say the name. You give me like a couple sentence quick on them. Cool. Number 11, catcher Edgar Quero for the White Sox.
Yeah, Quero, he could easily start in the majors this year and be like the starting catcher for the White Sox for most of the season. He's caught most of their pitching prospects at this point, so it makes a lot of sense for him to just kind of like stick with pitchers.
Yeah. Okay, but not a lot of power, right? Is that fair to say?
Maybe 15 to 20 homer power, which I mean, like it's an average catcher. Like you got an average catcher bat. I just think he's going to play a lot.
Sure.
So,
okay, cool. Number 12, first round pick last year, Travis Bazzana.
Yeah, Travis Bazana, number 1 overall by the Guardians. Guardians kind of have a little bit of a hole at second base right now. They just traded Jimenez to clear room. So right now they've got like Gabriel Arias there and
Juan Brito.
yeah, Juan Brito. So there's a good shot for Bazana to come up and just like snag that role. Or that could be the Guardians. They're going to be cheap. That could be their trade
Yeah,
deadline move. Oh, instead of trading, we just brought up Travis Bazana. Ha. So
teams do that. I do. I was gonna say I don't remember the Guardians ever like getting a prospect up really early on, and then you shouldn't even really expect it. I don't know. You're getting a little greedy if you're a fan of Cleveland and expecting to see your first pick that quick. But I guess if you're ready, you're ready. Number 13, interesting one here. Luis Angel Acuna, Ronald's little brother, looked like he had a pretty good shot at playing time before the Alonso signing. Not that he's a first baseman, but it was looking like Vientos would move to first, and then there'd be opening at third. But Acuna now hoping to play second base, or what's the story?
it's kind of like that Luis Rengifo thing I mentioned before. The Mets plan for him because every team wants to do this now. The Dodgers got Tommy Edman, and everyone's like, "Oh, we want to be like the Dodgers." So now everyone has to get one of these super sub type guys. So I think he's just a guy that's going to move around the diamond, play second, short, outfield. Whenever
I
they
didn't
need
know he could play
someone,
outfield.
he's still in.
He can play outfield.
Yeah, he can play outfield.
Okay. And Jeff McNeil stinks. He's done them a lot of good, I guess. I bet these teams kind of view like loyalty to these veteran guys who've just played a bunch for them and have been good guys, not getting into trouble or whatever. But yeah, I mean, McNeil's, especially for fantasy at least, maybe we're a little bit jaded by that. You can be a real life good player without doing anything for fantasy purposes, and I think that's Jeff McNeil. But even at second, yeah. So and then injuries happen, so Acuna probably gets in there. Steals for sure, good steals floor, right? But the power maybe a little bit more questionable.
Yeah, it's a little deceiving because he had 3 bombs in like a very small sample size last year.
Yeah,
And so now people are going to think, oh, it's Ronald Acuna's brother, and he had 3 bombs in 10 games or whatever, so he's going to be awesome. But no, he's more like a 10 homer. Like if he had full time playing time over a whole year, he would be like an 8 to 12 homer guy with like 35 steals or something like that.
yeah, and he'll take. Yeah, that's the nice thing about Roto is that's why I feel pretty good about Dylan Cruz. By the way, just like I don't know if he'll hit for power or average this year. It could take another year, but I know he'll steal a bunch of bases and he'll play. So I feel like the floor is pretty nice. So if Acuna gets in there, I'd say he's if he's playing every day, I'd say Acuna global roster. Start him in every league just for the steals. Number 14, Michael McGreevy, another home. You're a Cardinals homer, so another Cardinals pitcher on the list.
Yeah, I'm just giving you a guy that's going to pitch a lot of innings this year. There's a good chance that he breaks camp, and he already pitched 150 innings last year between 3 levels. He actually had a really good showing in the majors because he doesn't walk anybody. Like he is basically like the Cardinals' future version of Kyle Hendricks or Jameson Tyone. I think like my comp for him was like Jameson Tyone light. On the F scores, he rated it as an 87 F stuff, which is pretty bad, but a 120 control. So the dude really puts the ball where he wants it to go. And like he was comped whenever the Cardinals picked him in the first round, former first rounder, to Justin Bieber. But remember, Bieber had like a really strong uptick in his stuff, like his first year or second year or something like that. So like McGreevy, I don't know if the stuff is really there, but like he's going to pitch a lot of innings and he has good control. So he's probably going to have a pretty good whip for you. So if you need like a whip artist guy that might, and like also Cardinals have a good home ballpark. So he might be like a 380 guy with a good whip, but not getting strikeouts for you. So if you want to like help out on ratios, he's like a good ratio, deep league ad.
Oh, that's good. He'll be really cheap too. But
Yeah.
we here at MLB Data Warehouse, I've been pumping up WHIP all offseason. I'm targeting that because it's easier to project. It's pretty easy to find help in WHIP if you can just find not that there's not a ton of guys that can do it, but at least you can find guys that you'll be able to predict that they can do it, right? Like low walk rates, go for that. So McGreevy can help there, but wouldn't expect a ton of strikeouts or a great ERA. But with ERA, anything can happen, man. Like pretty random stuff. So one more, another pitcher, Brewers, Logan Henderson, and we'll wrap it up.
I mentioned Henderson. He really popped on my stuff. 105 F stuff, 106 F control, 110 F ERA. He's super short, only 5'11", but he throws 94, 96. He's got that like high ride fastball that everybody loves. Big quads. So like I compared him to like Spencer Strider light because he's short and has like massive quads and has like the killer IVB on the fastball. So like this stuff is not, the same because Strider throws, high 90s, not mid 90s. So like it's like the lighter version basically, but he's really good across the board. 15% swinging strike rate last year. He went from complex all the way to AAA. Only went 81 innings pitched, but 28.1 K minus walk, 15% swinging strike rate, under 1 whip, 330 ERA. So, and he hit AAA last year. So that's the big thing is like, if Mizurowski fails as a starter and the Brewers want to make him a reliever, then Logan Henderson would be that next guy up. And right now, their number 5 starting pitcher is slated to be Aaron Ashby, which is pretty atrocious.
Yeah.
So there's a good chance here for Logan Henderson this year.
Yeah, Woodruff, Peralta at the top, but then a lot of question marks after that. Even question marks with Woodruff, re-injury. I don't know. Maybe it's not as big of a re-injury question. Like the performance might be bad, but that doesn't mean Brandon Woodruff's going to lose his job. They're certainly trying to, I guess, probably see what he can do and get rid of him, or 1-year contract. I don't know. It doesn't matter about Woodruff, but yeah, there's openings in the Brewers rotation, and it's probably a team that'll be in the playoff mix as well. So they'll be looking to get their best guys in there. So that's good. So that's 15. You have 100 some prospects ranked, and these write-ups, I didn't show them on the screen, but you give stats, age, ETA, the F-score stuff, and then your own little nuggets on it. You've been tweeting them out, Fantasy Ace Ball, and gaining followers, which is nice. You're sadly underfollowed, man. I mean, this F-score stuff is crazy detailed, and we need to get that out to the masses. So where else can people find this stuff?
Yeah, you could find, you already mentioned it's on X at Fantasy Baseball. That's the only social media I'm on, unless you count YouTube as a social media. But you can find my stuff on YouTube also at the Tim Kanak, Kanak. I actually, the other day, I went to a spring training game and I posted like my video and stuff. So you'll get like my podcast on there, Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I do video and I also have the podcast if you want to listen to that. But also on YouTube, I put my scouting stuff. So like when I'm going to see prospects, because I live in Jupiter, Florida, so I've got like 5 teams like right next to me. So I get to see a lot of cool prospects during the year. I put all my prospect stuff that I go check out on YouTube.
Okay. And then in a few years, when you sell everything, you'll have to make a website or just join onto mine. We've been talking about that, but yeah, me and Tim will be doing stuff together. We've become friends, I think, as much as that can happen, only seeing each other through a computer screen, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
We need to get some leagues together too. Come on. Dynasty.
Yeah.
I've been trying to make it. I've been trying to get you in a dynasty or a keeper league.
Every day I get closer, but I think I'll hold out. I only have 1 month left to deny it, and then maybe next year, the next time the winter rolls around, these winters are just so brutal in Northern Indiana. You get pretty I don't know, not bored with kids. You're never bored, but that's it. That's the end of the podcast. Thanks, Tim. Thanks everybody for listening. Hopefully these prospects work out. Again, guys to target when they come up or stash or whatever, handle it wisely. But that's it for us, and we'll talk to you next time.
See you.